Sexually transmitted diseases are as old as mankind. The perception of these conditions have changed over the centuries from an individual's consequence of low sanitation and hygiene to an established link with sexual activities. According to the World Health Organization, it's estimated that 374 million new infections with 1 of 4 STIs are prevalent in year 2020. To put these figures into proper perspective, is a professional by name 𝘗𝘩𝘢𝘳𝘠𝘕, who is a licensed pharmacist, health consultant, family planner, and a relationship counselor.
Thank you very much. Since you should know about STDs, STD is what we know as sexually transmitted diseases. The way sexually transmitted diseases come about, we know many people talk about sexually transmitted disease as something that was contracted through probably sex or having any sexual intercourse with another person. In such situation, you get infected through the disease. But funny enough, there are so many other things that are different from probably what we are not used to. And we'll get to know about that over time. According to WHO, that's World Health Organization, it says that we have about 1 million new STDs always occurring every day. New 1 million sets coming up every day. And the truth about this is that this disease is a social disease. Social disease in the sense that it can get across to anybody in as much as we relate with each other, as much as we socialize with each other. So at this point, we can always look at it that way. STD, sexually transmitted disease, meaning that what the disease was gotten what sexually, right? And it was transmitted through an infection to another person. But does it actually mean what it's being said? Before now, we always talk about the fact that if you want to contract sexually transmitted disease, you get it by having sexual intercourse. Well, that has been right all the while. But funny enough, this day it is no longer like that. There was a time we were talking about Ebola. Ebola was just simple touch, and you hear someone actually has a disease just by touching the person. You hear of hepatitis. Hepatitis is also a sexually transmitted disease. Funny enough, how do you get hepatitis? Through touch, body fluid. You don't need to have sex with a person. You see, these things are always very important for us to know and know how we relate with each other anytime we find ourselves socializing with others. So I will start talking about the STD myths, misconceptions of STD itself, what we take it as, which is not. The first myth I'll be talking about, they said you can see an STD if your partner has one. The truth about sexually transmitted disease is that many a times these diseases are not seen physically. Let me give an example. We'll talk about HIV. HIV is a disease that once infected by someone, it's not written on his face, even for the next 3, sometimes 4, 5 years. You don't know that this person is infected with HIV itself. HIV is a viral disease. It's a sexually transmitted disease itself. But it's asymptomatic, meaning that what? There is no symptom being seen. It's until when it gets to a stage of complication, you're not likely to see maybe some symptoms coming up. But by that time, you can imagine how far this person has spread this disease. Test is very important. STDs could be lurking around. The second myth I'll be talking about is a condom protects you from STD. Actually, the answer for this is partly yes and partly no. You know, we are always encouraged every now and then that those who cannot restrain from sex but still want to keep themselves in order, the only thing they do is to ask them to use condom to protect them from what? From transmitting diseases. The picture we have here, it's a latex condom. Whatever is being released from the man doesn't get into the woman that way. So it physically protects the woman from that. That's the yes. But the no also comes from another aspect. Beyond HIV, there are many other viral diseases in the picture of STD itself. Every day, over 1 million STDs, that infections, have been detected according to WHO. And you can imagine the ones that we don't even know of, and yet these things are being transmitted. An example is this herpes, genital herpes. Funny enough, this viral infection has no cure but can be transmitted even without having sex. It can be transmitted by just touching a sore of that person. It comes in small sores around the genitals. Sometimes a person who has such kind of infection touches that sore and uses that same hand to touch another part of the body. It also spreads to that area. And a lady who has sex with such kind of man, or a man who has sex with such kind of woman, despite the fact that he uses condom, doesn't stop him from contracting that disease. Number 3, I'll be talking about another statement here which says oral sex is safe from STD. That statement is definitely wrong. Remember I said STDs these days not only transmitted through sexual intercourse, it can be transmitted through other means. One of it is kissing. And I gave an example of a man who has genital herpes. A man who has genital herpes comes up and touches his sore, maybe in a genital or groin area, and touches another part of his body. It spreads to that area. Genital herpes has no cure. However, science has been able to help and research that there are even some vaccines for some of these STDs. This will not go away on their own. As it said, there is a statement that comes in funnily. It says viruses are self-limiting. If you are a science student, you should probably understand this, or you've done biology, it says viruses are self-limiting, that someone who gets virus without using drugs, but after a while he is free of symptoms. Yes, he could be free of symptoms, but not free of the virus itself. In such situation, what does it mean? It means that someone who has been infected with one of these bacteria and virus that causes STD, that causes the sexually transmitted diseases, has gotten it, and there is nothing that can be done. Rather, he can only manage himself anytime he comes up with a symptom. And we talked about it. We said it's not sin. It can be transmitted even without having sexual intercourse. Most importantly, the only way we can help ourselves, or people who have even been infected in such situation now, is that they can only try their best to build their immunity. You go to your doctor, you go to your pharmacist, or any of your health professionals around you. They will assist you and tell you how you can build your immunity and help you to always manage this condition and still live a very good and healthy life. So best you can do is to suppress it. Myth number 5 says that STD has no complications. That's definitely a big lie. STD always has its complication, and funny enough, its complications can go far as going down to cancer. An example is it can cause someone to become infertile. A woman who is yet to give birth to a child and she gets STD, if not well taken care of, it can make her lose her pregnancy. So there are complications. There is heart disease, pelvic inflammatory disease. That one is at the lower abdomen. The person has this flank pain and all of that. So many complications. Imagine having a heart disease. Imagine the person is unable to give birth. The person is unable to even release sperm properly. This is a diagrammatic explanation of the complication itself. The infection started from somewhere. Look at the list of infection under it. We have chlamydia. It's a type of STD. Gonorrhea is another type. HPV is another type. That one causes what we call cervical cancer. Hepatitis B, I've mentioned it. That one affects the liver directly. Trichomonas, HSV, syphilis. There are so many of them. We can't just list all of them, but these are the ones we can still talk about for now. Look at the yellow box there. What does it cause? Infertility, ectopic pregnancy, chronic pain. Look at that. Look at congenital infection. Congenital infection means that the child who is yet to be born is already even getting a disease before being born. Have you had a situation of a child having gonorrhea? Yes, it happens. Why? Because the mother has been infected with a sexually transmitted disease right from there. Low birth weight, and that can even lead to child stillbirth. Some people lose their pregnancy even before giving birth. So all these things happen. It can affect the brain. It affects the entire system of the body, all because these things were not addressed at first. But one way we can avoid it, if you are pure of it, you can learn from this and try to prevent it. Safety precaution. You talk about the first point here, what is understand your pressures, your weak points, and your love languages. This sounds very funny, yes, but it's actually very important. It has nothing much to do with STD, but yet it has something to do with ourselves and our safety. It's look at what are your pressures. What are the things at this particular age? You have your sexual hormones that is always putting you on pressure. So you need to put some things in order. We have this pressure. Your sexual hormones is there, is always putting pressure on you. Your parents are there putting marital pressure on you and all of that. And you yourself, if you are not careful, our hormones are raging, and we always have these lure temptations around us. So you need to understand what is it that is always your pressure, so that you can learn how to avoid it. God has actually created us to be sexual beings, and being a sexual being itself, it is normal for you to feel tempted. It's normal for you to feel you want to be loved, you want that pleasure, you want all of these things. But yet you need to understand yourself so you can always learn how to avoid it and navigate your life to avoid being a victim of all these negative influences. Understand your love language also. Secondly, we talk about always be on guard. Always be on guard. Be focused on what you want. Be focused on what you are doing. Set your boundaries and know how to play wisely and smartly. I also talk about focus on your purpose, even when you are in a relationship. So in such situation, you will notice that, okay, yeah, love is an example. Love has no respect for anybody. Love doesn't have respect for anybody. If you are not careful, you will eventually fall. That's why they even use this phrase, funnily, fall in love. Some people fall in love, they don't stand up again. And that's where they end their life. Even in a relationship, be focused. Set your boundaries. Know how to do your things aright. That's one way of playing safe. Accountability is another thing. So when you talk about accountability, always be accountable to someone who can always check on you and all of that. Don't lie. Don't feel I can do all these things all alone. I will figure out myself. I'll take care of myself. Plan your dates around people. Don't plan your dates and say only me and him will be in a separate place, in a very quiet place. Nobody is around. Anything can happen. That's very true. And I don't think none of us wants to always regret our actions later on. So you need to plan your dates around people. Inform somebody about your whereabouts. Treasure your purity. I choose to be pure today. I choose to be do the right thing. I choose to be responsible. I choose to be answerable to all my actions, everything that I choose to be accountable. This way, when you have it, a way of doing what we call mindset surgery. You set your mindset very well such that you don't allow anything that goes around you just fall for it. Finally, I will talk about the last word, run. Don't feel you are strong, go. You need to run. Whenever you see something, trouble around, run. That is it. Whenever you see temptation, you know you can't withstand, run. Ladies, run. Guys, run. Don't feel you're a guy and you cannot handle this thing. Run. All other intimacies may be acceptable, but if you know you cannot endure some other things, please run away from them. The sexual intimacy outside of marriage carries what? A huge cost. That cost is written in capital letter, very big red one. Why is it like that? Because the cost and the consequences, you are likely going to face it all alone. And many a times, some consequences cannot be reversed. They are irreversible. And that is it. STD is there. So many other things. Psychological trauma is there. Many other things that we don't want. So best thing to do is to avoid all of this. I believe with all these things, we can always become better personalities, better beings, and even teach others about this. And at the end of the day, we'll have a better community around us.